Right, our top story: after concluding his maiden state visit to the US, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is headed for Egypt. He will arrive in capital Cairo in the evening. Post this, he will hold a roundtable with the Egyptian Prime Minister. In fact, Prime Minister Modi will also interact with the Indian community while in Cairo. On the agenda is also meet with the Grand Mufti of Egypt and an interaction with the Egyptian thought leaders. All right, we have Deepak Vohra, who's a former ambassador, with us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing time and joining us here on Mirror Now. Sir, my first question, of course, is if you could please help us understand the significance of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Egypt.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's always a pleasure to be on your outstanding channel, and I learned so much from you. You're brilliant, young lady. Take it from me. I'm 72 years young, and I've seen many anchors. You are one of the best.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Narendra Modi is going to Egypt after his historic visit to the United States, where, if I may slightly modify what Julius Caesar is supposed to have said in the first century, Vedi, Vini, Vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. What one would say about his visit to the United States was, I came, they saw, I conquered. Now, the question here is, why this visit to Egypt? That's the obvious thing. And it comes within 6 months of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, whom I know, being the chief guest at the 2023 Republic Day celebrations. He was the first Egyptian president to have been given this honor. So it was an important gesture. What I see happening, ma'am, is the relationship had become not iffy. It had become kind of lazy, if that's the right term, in the last 25, 30 years. It was, oh yeah, Egypt hai, and on that, India hai, theek hai. Now I think both countries are trying to hit the reset button and elevate their relationship to a strategic partnership. With ancient civilizations, multicultural societies, youthful nations, with aspirational populations, etc. And then one recalls the great friendship between Jawaharlal Nehru and Jamal Abdel Nasser, etc., etc., etc. One of the challenges that we face today, ma'am, the Middle East has far too many leaders and far too few followers. Everybody wants to be the guru of the Middle East. You know, there's Pakistan which says, I have the military power. And then there's Turkey which says, I have the memory power. I used to be the Sultan. Egypt says, I'm the strongest country in the Middle East. And then there's Saudi Arabia saying, I have the money power. So we're not quite sure who's going to be the boss in that region. The goodwill for India, and I've been to Egypt many times, I was right next door in the Sudan, it's palpable. There is genuine affection. I went to a market, my wife and I, she was wearing a sari, and this fellow in a shop looked at us and he said, hello, India, this is Amitabh Bachchan's shop. I remember that distinctly. So there are lots of things. You know, in fact, the funny thing is that even Pakistanis pretend to be Indian so that they can get a better deal from the Egyptian shopkeepers. Now, the story goes that during the Second World War, a very large number of Indian sepoys served in the region. In fact, my late father also fought there, but in a different context. They couldn't understand Egyptian currency, so they would just give a fistful of notes to the shopkeeper and say, take whatever you want. And of course, the Egyptians had a field day saying these Indians are so trusting, we can con them. To this day, if you negotiate too hard with an Egyptian shopkeeper, he'll turn around and say, Ana Hindi, do you think I'm an Indian? Which means, do you think I can be conned so easily? Now, Egypt has the headquarters of the League of Arab States, the only country that straddles the Asian and African continents. Turkey is Asia and Europe. Egypt is Asia and Africa and wants to be a permanent. All that we know. There are other interesting stories. In the 1960s, both countries tried to jointly develop a jet engine. And this was led by the famous Messerschmitt of Germany. You know, after the Second World War, the Americans said, these Germans have tremendous expertise in building aircraft and engines, so we can't let them go anywhere. They took away a whole bunch of these characters to America, and other countries tried to take them, etc. That was very, very funny at that time. So this Messerschmitt's character developed the aircraft.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mirror Now and sharing your views.